Right about now, you're about to be possessed by the sounds.
Yeah, I know what it is. You little suckers get to talking, grabbing that walking, strapped to the pong of their jaws and smacking they sleep with the coffins.
Okay, we are back on the Locker Room Readout on the BGC Sports Network. I am your co-host, Chris Murray, along with Irie Harris and the lovely and beauteous Saphyr Blue. And our special guest in the studio is the CEO of the Shake Back Media, Willie Epting Jr., a man who knows a lot of things about a lot of things. So we're going to talk about a lot of things, especially about rings. And I forgot to put my mic on today. We're going to talk about rings today. But first, gotta put the quote Kumo D, gotta pay the bill, and that's what we're going to do. So let me ask you a question. Are you looking for a relaxing getaway where you can play all day and escape the tedious grind of life? Then plan your getaway today at Lake Crest Casino and Hotel, Ardmore's premier gaming destination, and let the winning begin. Featuring more than 1,000 of the latest games, plus an array of amenities, including an incredible restaurant, exceptional retail experiences, and a resort-style pool. Lake Crest offers everything you need for an unforgettable escape and a winning experience. Book your stay today and go all in on one of the area's most exciting destinations, Lake Crest Casino and Hotel. Visit lakecrestcasino.com. That's lakecrestcasino.com. Ladies and gentlemen, we got to begin our discussion today of rings, because LeBron James, now that we're in the mode, in the spirit of awarding more rings, LeBron James recently had some interesting comments about rings, saying that he kind of expressed how he's fed up with the idea that players are judged by the rings that they win and all that. And there's a lot to say about it, but I was wondering, I just want to hear some of that soundbite right now, just to get an idea, just to give you an idea of what LeBron is talking about.
Man, it's just like you sit here and you tell me, Allen Iverson and Charles Barkley and Steve Nash, wasn't unbelievable. Like, oh, they can't be talked about or discussed with these guys because this guy won one ring or won two rings or won, like, it's just weird to me. It's like saying Peyton Manning can't be in the same room with Brady or Mahomes because he only has one ring. They don't never discuss that in these sports.
Well, I want to correct something. I mean, Peyton Manning has two rings. I just want to correct that aspect of it. But there are a lot of things there are a lot of issues that I have. There are two things that could be correct at the same time. One is that I do believe that that winning a ring, while important, should not diminish the greatness of some players because there are always circumstances. But at the same time, and I picked up on this from my man Rob Parker. At the same time, LeBron, you bought into this. You went around the world from Cleveland to Miami to LA, back to Cleveland or somewhere, to Miami and back to Cleveland, then LA and whatnot. And you were the one chasing. You bought into this, and I got to know what you guys really. I got to find out from you, Saphyr and Irie. I mean, it's one of those things where I don't think a player's career should be defined because there's circumstances to it. And I'm going to tell you a story later about something about like guys like Dan Fouts or even Lamar Jackson and others who have that burden of having to win a ring.
Right.
And all. So I'm gonna start with Willie first, since you are our guest here today, and then I'm gonna go with Irie and then Saphyr, who always like to say Saphyr for last because she comes up with the most provocative opinion. So I can say her for last. So
I accept your apology.
Go ahead, Willie.
Well, let me say, first of all, thank you guys for having me on the program. I really appreciate it. And it's you guys are really crushing it with this with this project or with this program. LeBron James is, to me, he is the most polarizing athlete of this generation. He may be the best athlete that the NBA has ever seen, but the best athlete does not equate to the GOAT. And things like this are the very reason why, in my opinion and my opinion only, he will never be the GOAT. I understand the all-time point scorer, but if you would put LeBron and Michael's stats together on a per year basis, Michael Jordan kills him. He kills him. And for people out there that say, well, it's a team game and LeBron, he had to carry a 07 team to the finals and they got swept by the Spurs. Well, I'm glad you said that, because here's my retort to that. LeBron James went to Miami and created a super team and lost 2 NBA finals with a super team. He had more Hall of Famers on those Miami Heat squads than Michael Jordan played with in his entire career. So I don't want to hear that argument because it doesn't make any sense. Now, Michael Jordan, yeah, he had to run up against the Pistons and the Celtics and the Lakers. Well, not necessarily the Lakers, but the Pistons and the Celtics for sure. But once they got everything in place, and it really turned around when Phil Jackson got there, because I remember like when Doug Collins was the coach and they were winning 50 games a year and they were going to the playoffs, but then Phil Jackson came in and took them to another level. But Michael Jordan, to me, and I hated Michael Jordan. I was a Pistons fan. Isaiah Thomas, player. But he, to me, is head and shoulders above LeBron James. As a matter of fact, my top 3 of all time are Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then LeBron James. That's me.
Okay. Irie?
Oh, buddy Willie, you sure set the tone there. You was ready. you you was ready. How
I
do I
stay ready.
combat? So you gotta get ready. How do I combat the origin further? All right. In my own words, I think LeBron is up there. He's probably the best player I've ever seen up to this point, or at least up there within the top tier of players I've ever seen in my lifetime. At the same time, I think he wants things to be one way when it's the other way. I don't think anybody denounces his greatness. If anything, he has enough what I would call puppet heads around to further persuade the public into his way of seeing him as the greatest player to ever grace the hardwood. However, at the same time, this would not be of conversation to him or something that I think he would be speaking about much, regardless if he came up with the topic or if it was just was asked about by Steve Nash on the podcast. But it would not be of conversation much to him if he had the same amount of rings or more than Michael Jordan. When certain topics are out there, it doesn't equate or bother you in any way when you meet the quote unquote requirements by the public, because he's lost 6 times in the NBA Finals, because you have people within the public that hold that against him. I think that further prompts the conversation regarding ring coaching and bringing it being a team thing, and that's correct. I agree with that. When we talk about Jordan and those teams, mainly it's Jordan that people are speaking of because of his greatness and his dominance. But then you have other guys such as just for example John Paxson coming clutch in the '93 finals. Who helped bring who helped the winning further continue and keep it going. You have that as well, but the tide starts with the top guy, with the top player himself, and because it was Jordan who started it and finished it when it mattered most, he, and especially in my eyes, is gonna get the edge in that compared to any other player in NBA history because he came up big when it mattered most in terms of winning. It would not be a conversation if he had the same amount of rings or even more of that, but because he doesn't, he has to kind of what they would say cope in some sense because he doesn't know if he'll even get sniff 6 rings at that. If he gets to 5, that would be unbelievable. That'd be a bonus because he doesn't have much longer. So I see his own way of coping regarding the lack of rings he has and how that's being held against him.
Saphyr?
I mean, for everything that you gentlemen just said, right? For me, I think that LeBron has his view of reality, and that's true to himself. I don't begrudge anyone for seeing things the way that they do. Do I think that LeBron James is one of the greatest NBA players of all time? Yes. And then when we start crossing over into this area of goatism, I say no. Every generation is different, right? We can pick up with Michael Jordan, but I submit to you again, going back to our first segment, I'm back as John Hondo Havlicek phased out of the game, and then Bird and Magic were there.
Mm.
And then we're talking about, I know with all due respect to LeBron, when he talks about the positions that he plays, he says all positions. Okay,
He
that's
does.
fine. But when I think about that question, I can never really answer it because in my mind, we're talking about apples and oranges, right? So, LeBron is where he's at. I respect that. But for me, you know, putting what he said specifically into context, I could ask that question for every single vocation there is. Salespeople, tradespeople. I could go on and on and on. And I think that just brings it back to it really is based on the individual, how they view their reality and put themselves into that context. And sports, again, it's a microcosm to life. So, LeBron, you can come on home and finish your career with the Cleveland Cavaliers if you're listening.
I should have
Just
known.
saying.
Well,
Oh,
okay.
gee.
I'm gonna answer. I'm gonna answer back to all the comments here. Okay. Number one, I'm gonna say this. I hate that comparison. Between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. I hate it. I hate it because you got players playing two different positions and two different approaches to those positions. You have a out and out scorer in Michael Jordan, who I do admire, but like you, Willie, I was a Pistons fan back in the late 80s, early 90s, and I despised the Bulls. And I probably rooted against the Bulls in every other championship game that they played. But that said, Michael is one of the greatest, closers and killers of all time. But that wasn't LeBron's role. LeBron was a good facilitator. He's one of the greatest all-around players. He is the only player in the history of the NBA Finals to lead in every statistical category. He has his own greatness in his own right. I don't like comparing the eras because, like I say, as much as you want to say Bill Russell has won 11 championships, he played in a different era, and he played on a team full of Hall of Famers. You want to talk Magic and Bird, you want to talk all these different, you want to talk these days, Steph Curry. It's hard for me as someone who's observed sports for a long time to put anybody because the eras are so different and everything. And I can't, it's hard. But at the same time, LeBron is a bit of a hypocrite in this situation because you know what? He pursued those rings. And you're right, Irie. Had he won those rings, he wouldn't be having this conversation. But I do think that as fans, we put too much emphasis on it because I still remember one of the greatest quarterbacks ever played in the NFL was Dan Fouts. Okay. He had a chance to go to the Super Bowl. His team was down 34-20, got him to 34-27, 1980 in an AFC championship game. They had about 6 or 7 minutes in that game. He put them in position The Chargers never saw, and Ray, you're a Raiders fan, they never saw the ball again. Now, did Dan Fouts choke in a minute of, in that particular moment? No, he did not. He did everything. There's something to say about guys who did everything they could to win and whatnot. People call Don McNabb in Philly a choker. I didn't think he choked.
I was waiting you to mention him. I was waiting on that name drop. I was waiting, OG.
I know, but what I'm saying is he didn't have the players around him. Now, could he have made the play? I mean, there's so much debate behind that. But he still, in that era, was one of the most dominant quarterbacks, and one of the most dominant quarterbacks of that era. So, I mean, would you like to win? And in sports, it's hard. Bob Lanier was a great player. Karl Malone, great player. Okay. Patrick Ewing was a great player. Was he the greatest of all? I mean, he couldn't win. He couldn't get past. And Charles Smith, that ball's still bouncing off the rim at Madison Square Garden. So I don't like that conversation. I'm sorry. I don't like, but go ahead, Willie. But I'm just saying, I don't like that conversation.
Okay, so let me say this about this whole GOAT situation, because I'm really sick and tired of it. And I don't care what era you played in. Number one, I don't like to say the GOAT, because there are a lot of great players that could be considered the GOAT that I've never seen play in their prime. So I like to say the best that I've ever seen, which spans over a good amount of time. So this is another reason why LeBron James can't be the GOAT. And it doesn't have to be all inclusive with the championships. You can't be the best player on a super team and then you shrink when your team needs you the most. That cannot happen. That was never Michael Jordan's problem. Michael Jordan was a stone cold killer. And that is the mentality where Kobe Bryant got that. It could have named Michael Jordan the Black Mama for all we knew. But the thing is that you cannot shrink in the largest moment in time where your squad needs you. And I'm going to just say this, quiet as it's kept, ladies and gentlemen, Ray Allen saved LeBron James with that 3-point shot at the end of that Spurs game in Game 6.
Yep, yes, he did.
But because they were wheeling the trophy out, had the champagne on ice, and was ready to roll out all out. So we really could be talking about LeBron as only having 3 rings, but for Greg Popovich not putting Tim Duncan back in the game for rebounding help, and then of course Ray Allen hitting that shot from the corner.
Yeah, I mean, you're right about that. I mean, but I don't like that. I just don't like the conversation. I mean, but at the same time, two things are right at the same time. LeBron, you left. You left Cleveland. You left Cleveland to go down to Miami to win these championships. You put yourself in the conversation. So, I mean, and you willingly did it. Now you're complaining. Now it's near the end of your career. Well, I mean, and as much as I love Rob Parker, but sometimes I like to disagree with Rob Parker. But I gotta say, on the one hand, if that wasn't a big thing with you, don't leave Cleveland. And so we have got to end this segment, and we'll talk. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Locker Room Readout on the BGC Sports Network. We'll be right back.